Yes.
So for the movie, I know you told us, you showed us on the latex about the bibliography and stuff. Does that mean you expect us to do more research on it, not just
Yeah,
the movie?
so there's going to be, mathematical content in the movie, and we need to figure out whether it's right or not. So we're going to need to do some library work to figure out whether the math content in that movie is correct. So from that, I expect you'll have references. That's why. Okay. Although somebody did Donald Duck in Math Magic Land, I think you might just know that math. So there's a possibility of not having that reference.
Do you want us to reference the movie too? Do you want us to reference the movie as well?
Well, no, you don't need to. I mean, there's clearly a review about the movie, so you don't need to be formal about that. But any references that you need to look up about the math that's in the movie. Okay, so I talked to the people in the history department yesterday. This is open house, and they're really keen on this reenactment where we burned down a ship.
No, burning down anything.
It'll be out in the pond, so just gonna fill with fire.
I like this university.
The buildings are mostly brick, they won't burn.
Yeah, that's
Okay, so some reminders, I guess. We actually just were chatting about this a little bit before we got started. The fourth paper is due at the end of this month, and this is the one where I want you to actually jump to having a bibliography. Really, from here on out, you should have bibliographies in any papers. The slides I had about doing bibliography last time were broken, you'll recall, so I added them in here. I'm not going to talk about it very much. I'm going to go through it quickly. The tool is called BibTeX. This is actually, if you have to write it on BibTeX, you render it like that, anyway. But the command line is BIBTEX, all lowercase. So you'll create a .bib file that contains a database of your references. And then when you actually want to make the references section, pretty much at the end of your paper, but make sure it happens before the line that says end document. And I looked up the backslash. Anyway, you'll tell it what kind of bibliography style you're going to have, and then this actually makes the bibliography, and you need to pass it the name of the file that contains your database entries. I think the APA-like style is just fine. I usually use IEEE transactions. So here's an example of what the database looks like. It's a plain text file, and the entries in it all start with an @ sign and describe what kind of thing it is. Typically, for you, it'll either be an article or a book. You'll either say that article or that book. That's the key. That is the thing that you'll refer to the database entry by in your actual text. And then beyond the key, you'll have pairs of things that look like a keyword and what it actually is. So author, list of authors, title, right? You get the idea. Usually, you don't have to necessarily put these curly braces around everything. It's just a style thing. I do it because some of them need it, like the ones that might have spaces in it, the journal or the title, those have spaces, so there you definitely need it. So I just put everything in curly braces to be consistent. But it's not necessary. That's weird. Both of those, oh no, you see the very last thing in there? If you wanted the key to be written differently, like this one, there's the key, and this is how it's printed. But in the top one, it says BM03. That's because it was by people named Bozzi and Minter, and it was published in 2003. They wanted it printed like that. So that's a fine, but you don't usually need to have a printed key entry in there. When you're actually at a point in the text of your article, right, where your report, where you're going to actually put in that citation, you just put in /cite. So you just said, oh, the quadratic formula was invented by some guy, and then you say /cite, and the reference to where you got that information from. And so that'll get turned into a thing that looks like PMO3. Actually, the key is what it gets turned into, the mark that's in your actual paper, depends on what the bibliography style is. For the APA, like, it's going to be author, last name, and a year. Yeah, so then this is the process you're going to need to do. Run LaTeX, which is happening kind of all the time while you're doing it on the CodeCal thing. It's every time you save the file or 30 seconds or something, it runs LaTeX. So usually you don't have to worry about that. Once you've got an auxiliary file that comes from running LaTeX, you can run LaTeX. And then make sure to run LaTeX a second time. And the only problem right now is that in CodeCal you'll actually have to open a terminal and run the LaTeX command by hand, basically. If you have trouble getting it to go, let me know. And
Did you talk to your friend about that?
as a matter of fact, no, I have not. He's in the throes of starting his own company. Well, not starting. He's been doing it for a year and a half. But he's a very busy man. Yeah. Anybody recognize this guy? Do you know what you're looking at even right there?
A stamp.
It's a stamp. Yeah. From where? Okay.
Russia?
Russia. Very good. Except not Russia,
Okay.
which is a modern country. Just a few years back, it broke apart.
Oh, Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what the CCCP means up in the corner here.
Oh, okay.
This, what is it? The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, which all start with the letter S. The C's in Russian are S's really. And the P in Russian is really, anybody know? You know this if you've done like polar coordinates or spherical coordinates. You know how you use rho for radius?
Okay.
P in Russian is actually the Greek rho. And so it looks like a P, but it's an R. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, this is a 4-hit stamp. This word is kind of an interesting one here. You don't hear it referred to very often in English, but there was a time when Arabs would be called Muslim. It comes from Muslim, right? And so that's that is really. Yeah, so it's fun to try to read this. Got any idea what letter that is? It doesn't look like a pie.
It does. So is that?
That's their P.
Okay.
Just for the fun of it,
That looks like a J.
I'm gonna give you a fun decipherment question. They see that on a sign in Moscow. Can you tell what it says?
Stop.
Yeah. So you already know how to read some Cyrillic. Anyway, so why would they have put this Arab guy on the stamp? That's Al-Khwarizmi. He's probably the earliest mathematician during the Islamic Golden Age, and he's the only one we're going to talk about. He's from an area called Khwarizm. So Al-Khwarizmi literally means from Khwarizm. And it is a region just south of the Aral Sea. Anybody know what the Aral Sea is? You haven't seen that on maps or anything? Just realized it. No, it's a inland lake, a lot like Salt Lake or the Dead Sea. So it's the kind of lake where no water runs out of it. It's all water running in. So it gets very salty over time. Yeah. So what's the Aral Sea? The problem is it's not there anymore. I'll show you this. This picture on the left is the Arrow Sea in the late 80s. Nice big sea. This is it now.
Where'd it go?
They drank it.
I thought you said it was super salty.
It was super salty, but they used the water that did flow into it in irrigation projects, and this is what happens when man messes around with the environment a little bit too much. Yeah, it just stopped being filled, so it all evaporated, right? So there's some interesting images down here farther, the space-based imagery of the Aral Sea. So Khwarizmi would have been. Oh, this is oriented funny. This is actually the north part of the sea, so he would have been down here. Oh, they've got them all upside down. This one's right side up. This is the North Aral Sea here. And so Khwarizmi would have been in this area. And you see that's fairly lush. There's rivers and things as well. It's right in the middle of Kazakhstan. You know where that is. That's where the Soviets have their, I keep calling it the Soviets. The Russians have their space launching facility in Baikonur in Kazakhstan. It's quite close to there also. So getting back to where this thing about this guy's origin leads us to what I think is got to be the funniest burn I've seen in a serious journal article type setting where you're trying to be very cool and academic. So it's worth looking at this. This is quoted, where am I at the MacTutor archive. So there are two quoted paragraphs here. I guess I'm going to read them both to you. The historian Al-Tabari gives him the additional epithet Al-Qutrubuli, indicating that he came from Qutrubul. Now that's, by the way, that's the what was Babylon at the time of the Clinton thing. Qutrubul, between the Tigris and Euphrates, not far from Baghdad, so perhaps his ancestors rather than he himself came Khwarizmi. That's a projection from years ago. Another epithet given to him by Al-Tabari is Al-Majusi. That would seem to indicate that he was an adherent of the old Zoroastrian religion. I didn't look it up. I guess that's some kind of like pagan religion that they had back then. But there's this pious preface to his book about algebra that shows that he was an Orthodox Muslim. So maybe Al-Tabari's epithet could mean no more than that his forebears, perhaps he in his youth had been Zoroastrians. So, interesting, right? The guy took this stuff, and the next guy, here's where the burn goes. Comments, this is by Rashed. The first one was Tumor. Al-Tabari's words should read Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi and al-Majusi al-Qutrubuli. Okay, so that word right there was missing the way this guy interpreted it. So he thought they were talking about one guy and giving him these three different names. The guy said, no, they just left out, the one word got left out, and so it's al-Khwarizmi and this other dude. So there are two people, al-Khwarizmi and al-Majusi al-Qutrubuli. The letter Wa, it's a single letter, right, to say and in Arabic, so that was omitted in the early account. This would not be worth mentioning if a series of conclusions about Al-Khwarizmi's personality, occasionally even the origins of his knowledge, had not been drawn. In his article, reference 1, G.J. Toomer, with naive confidence, constructed an entire fantasy on the era which cannot be denied the merit of making amusing reading.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lost it.
I don't know. I thought it was fun. But yeah, it's like, wow, dude. Harsh. So there we are.
I don't get the burn.
You don't get the burn? You tell the rest of the world that this other guy's thing, was mistaken, but it was amusing at least. You don't think that's a burn? Not as harsh as it could be, but yeah.
The 24 hours I was expecting.
Are you expecting more stars now?
It's a meth. Maybe it's sort of like a mild sunburn, a serious blister raising temperature. I like it. Okay, so his principal work is this thing. Hisab al-Jabr wal Walmukabala. Trying to say it well and I screwed it up. Walmukabala. So what is this? The W there is a rendering of that wa, the and that was missing in the last thing. So it's a work on Aljaber and Al-Mukabala. What are those two things? Aljaber doesn't it sound like algebra? That's where we get the word.
Oh yeah, it does.
It means completion. So what he meant by that was if you had, he was talking about quadratic equations. If you had anything occurring that was in the form of a subtraction or a negative sign, that wasn't going to be good. So you moved things to the other side of the equation. The way we do now, when we talk about now, that's moving things to the other side of the equation, adding something to both sides in order to get only positive quantities. So that's algebra. The other one, Mukabala, is balancing. That's what it means in Arabic, but what it really is combining like terms. Okay. So we have move and jump to either side of the equation and combining like terms. And those are the fundamental things that you use in doing algebra, right? He's the inventor of algebra. And we've stopped talking about Mukabala and only call it algebra now, algebra. So he actually figured out the quadratic formula in effect. I mean, he could solve quadratic equations. He viewed it as a very pragmatic kind of thing. So they didn't ever write things down in formulas. It was all in words, but they didn't literally have the quadratic formula. They just said, here's a process. This is what you do. And so it was actually a lot like students often wanted when they're teaching Math 95 or Math 100 or high school or something. Just show me how to do one. Well, that was the way he took it. He said, yeah, I'm just going to show you how to do one, and then those examples will get you through it. So he had 6 forms for a quadratic equation, and I didn't write them down because I was hoping we could figure out what they were. One of his rules, the algebra, was to move everything to one side so you only had positive quantities. So how many ways can you write down quadratic formulas that only involve positive stuff? You know, you may have things on either side of the equal sign.
So you have x squared equals something.
Yeah, so you could have like the ax squared equals the other stuff, bx plus c. This is a terrible marker.
C equals something.
Right, okay, you could have ax squared plus bx on the left. If a and b were both positive, that would work, equals c. Say again. So we would say something like bx, yeah, that's a ax squared plus c. Okay.
Everything equals 0.
I don't think he would have. Because they finally had 0. This is the point where one of the other things that he's famous for is writing about the Hindu numeration system, which included a symbol for 0. So maybe they got the idea that. Of course, he wouldn't have written this stuff like we're doing now. He did it in words. Okay, so we should talk a little bit about the words he used. I said that here. So the things that we were calling, well, we would probably call the quadratic part, the linear part, and the constant part. He called them numbers, roots, and squares. Can you imagine which is which here? C would be a number. Squares, that's clearly the squares, so there's only one choice for bx, must be the things they call roots. Not what we mean, we usually say, these days anyway, people talk about the roots of an equation, and they mean the solutions. But in his terminology, roots would have been the sort of the things of degree 1. Okay, so numbers, roots, and squares. So how many did we get so far? I've only got 3 so far. You guys mentioned everything on one side. That's probably the hardest case to deal with. Is there anything else?
What about just ax squared equals c?
Yeah, why does all these things have to be non-negative? I mean, positive, right? Some of them could be a 0. So we could have things like ax squared is equal to bx, and ax squared is equal to c. I think I just got 6 though.
Yeah, but what about bx plus c?
So ax squared equals 0?
No, the bx plus c.
That's not quadratic.
All right.
Yeah, so, no, that's okay. I'm sort of thinking that myself while I was writing it down, but I automatically skipped over it, yeah. Unless A is non-zero, you don't really have a quadratic thing to deal with, so it's easier. So, how do you do this stuff? You guys have heard about completing the square. Right? Can we all do completing the square? If somebody holds a gun to your head and says complete the square, or
Depends on the number.
Yeah.
And the size of the gun.
I was going to say the number of bullets or the number of what?
That's the funnest thing.
Okay, so let's remember how completing the square works. Suppose I have something like x squared plus 6x plus 3 equals 1. The thing over here is not a square,
Well, we can make it.
but we can make it one. And what would it be the square of if we could make it into a square?
X plus 3 quantity squared.
Okay, where are you getting that plus 3? Because I don't, is it from here?
Nah, and half in the middle.
It's half of the middle. Okay, so x plus 3 squared is equal to x squared plus 6x plus 9. And so that's sort of a parenthetical note here to ourselves. So if I want to complete this square, how much do I have to add to it?
You have to add negative 6.
I have to add positive 6. Right, I've got a 3,
Wait,
but I want a 9.
no, we actually the 1. Sorry.
No, not to that side.
Not on that side, I'm working on the left. Okay, so we add 6 to both sides. And now we've got something that is a square. So we get x plus 3 squared is equal to 7. Well, wow, I chose poorly. I wish I had made this number something so that had come out 9, and then I'd be, see, we can solve it.
Why don't you make that 1 to 10?
Yeah.
10 and 6. Okay. Can I do this? You guys gonna be mad at me for cheating?
I can't figure out what you said.
I added 1 and 6 to get 7, just like I needed to add 6 to this side with the 9. All right. Well, yeah, you're right. If I had made this a 10, then this side is a 16. So we've got a perfect square on both sides. It says x plus 3 is either 4 or it's minus 4. And so, let's see, x would be 1 or it would be negative 7. And of course, back then, they would probably thrown away the negative answer. But x is 1 sort of makes sense. So that's the process we know as completing the square today. They did not, algorithmic did not mean this. First of all, he didn't have formulas, right? He didn't have x. Yeah. He literally meant make a square, a thing that's almost a square, and figure out what you need to add in to make it a complete square. So his picture of that process would have looked something like this. You had x squared plus 6x on a thing. You would have said, okay, here's mx squared. And I'm going to draw my 6x as a couple of 3x's. They look like this. So this is a 3x here, and that's a 3x there. The side of the x squared square is x. Right? So that was why I called it the root, and the other thing was the area that is the x squared.
Okay.
So we've got the square, the root, actually 3 copies of the root over here and here. Total of 6 copies of the root. What do we need to add to that to complete the square?
9.
Yeah. It's this little piece right there. That's the 9. It should be added. Or that needs to come up somewhere. So he might have done Motabula to take the 3 over to the other. No, that's what would be algebra to take the 3 to the other side and then added the 9 to to both sides, Maqabula, and then proceeded like we normally do. It was literally these kind of diagrams that were present to talk about completing the square. So then there were a bunch of works by this guy. He was one of the founding members of the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. This was created by... The only reason I remember the guy's name is there's a restaurant downtown that serves like really good tabbouleh and stuff from Mamoun's. Anybody ever eaten Mamoun's? Oh, please go to Mamoun's. Enjoy yourselves immensely. Yeah. Anyway, Mamun was the name of the fifth caliph. He was basically the king of the caliphate. About 800 AD. Anyway, Mamun created this thing called the House of Wisdom. He was basically trying to recreate the sort of center that Alexandria had been for the Greeks, for the Muslim world. And what did I say that? So, besides having this library, well, I guess it's a bit like Alexandria. They had all these works in Arabic, and some of them are lost. So this is a translation into Latin. Algorithmi de numero indorum. Can you tell what algorithmi is? It's the word algorithm, but it's actually this guy's name. Rendered really oddly, right? But they had to translate from Arabic symbols to Latin symbols. It was probably done phonetically. Can you hear the algoritmi turning into algorithmi? It's not very close, I gotta say, but that's usually considered to be the guy's name. And then what about de numero indorum? I know this isn't a language class, but I bet you can figure that out.
The number.
The numbers, and what's indorum?
It's the opposite of algebra.
It is Indian. Of the Hindus, actually.
Obviously, I would say.
Yeah, it's the thing. Well, so there's debate. Some people say that the Hindus had the 9 symbols, and then the Arabs added the 0 in. I think, in fact, the Hindus had the 0 because having place notation like that without 0 is a little bit hard, as we noticed with the Babylonian stuff. So we've got that book because it was translated into Latin. This one, no, we don't know. There's no surviving copy of it. Sinten Zij means Sinten would be astronomy, and Zij is on about. Yeah. If you ever take an interest in astronomy, you will find that the names of most of the stars are Arabic, and it's probably due to this person, this foundational textbook on astronomy that listed all the names of stars. He also wrote geography. He made this is a quote from the MacTutor archive, by the way. Gave latitudes and longitudes to precise determination of locations for 2,400 places. So that was able to construct a world map. And then there's a bunch of lesser works. He wrote about the astrolabe, which is a sort of a model instrument to think about the structure of the solar system. He did works on the sundial and on the Jewish calendar. The Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar, so it's not quite as precise as what we use today, but it was better than what people had outside of the Jewish community. So it was pushed for a while. He also wrote political history, and including horoscopes. There was today no scientist would spend any time with astrology, but the world was different then, and they believed that was actually a scientific pursuit. Okay, so he's the start of the Islamic Golden Age. I just thought we'd take a look at this timeline. Okay, let's see. Why is it? Oh, let's see, it's loading. I guess it's a big image. So this is the period 600 AD to 1500. We're talking about roughly the fall of the Western Roman Empire until just after Columbus. And these are all the mathematicians' lifespans in that period. You will see in black, we have Islamic mathematicians, and then there are Indian mathematicians in red. So the Indians were part of the Caliphate. most part, but not all. I probably should have talked about Brahmagupta, because he was in the History of the World, I guess, video that we started with. Bhaskara is also pretty famous. I just decided to skip all the way to Al-Khwarizmi because I like some of these connections. Anyway, Islam, India, Islam. You can see that it was the famous mathematicians in this long period of time was dominated by Islamic mathematicians. Finally, we see somebody blue, Hermann of R. I don't know who that is. And I guess it's probably a Chinese mathematician. This is the first European mathematician important enough to be considered worthy of including on the Olympic chronometers. Okay, and this is the guy I want to get to next, Fibonacci. And by the way, you see after that it turns pretty blue. And, there's still some Arabs doing things there. You see a lot of European, non-Arab mathematicians in the timeline. And actually, kind of a lot of Indian guys too. That really past this point, this is rough. This area between 1400 and 1560, 1580. That's the Renaissance. It's not. I always thought, personally, I always thought the Renaissance was like a particular time, and then that was it. It just depended on where you were. The Renaissance really started in Italy, so the Italian Renaissance was quite early, in the 1300s. The rest of Europe took a while to catch up and get this idea of rebirth of the glory of ancient Greece, searching for knowledge and so on. So, let's talk about Fibonacci. Yeah, run out of slides, I think. Oh, no, I have a picture of it at least. That's actually a sculpture in Pisa, in Italy, the Leaning Tower. That's where he's from. Well, the Leaning Tower would have been put up after he was dead. So they have a sculpture of him there. Yeah, I'm out of slides. So what do we need to say about Fibonacci? First off, what's the name? Where did he get his name? His real name is Leonardo da Pisa. It's like Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Pisa is a guy named Leonard from Pisa. Why Fibonacci? Well, Fibonacci is a clan name or a family name. Sorry? No. Fibber? Is that where you're going? No. It comes from a Latin phrase, filius. Filius Bonacci, son of Bonacci. So he was saying he was a son of this clan. A lot of people have taken it to mean his father was named Bonacci. That's not quite it. It's more like his clan name was Bonacci and he's a descendant of that. His father was appointed to a post in Algeria as a representative of Pisa. Pisa in Italy is a port city. They did trading all throughout the Mediterranean. And an important group of people that they traded with were members of the Caliphate. So the Islamic world had extended all the way across. I should put the map in here. All the way across northern Africa. All the area we call Persia and Arabia, that was the Caliphate, all the way to India, and big chunks of what is now India would have been part of this Caliphate. It was a huge empire. So his dad got posted to a port city in Algeria to represent the interests of Pisa. He's a diplomat, essentially, although for just a city, not for a country. Of course, the country of Italy didn't exist then. It was a bunch of small independent cities. So he traveled a bit. Right? He went with his dad to Algeria, and he saw stuff there. His dad was very pragmatic. He saw that his son had a head for figures. So he said, why don't you figure out how they use that thingy with the beads on it? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But this was a tool that they did not have in Italy or the rest of Europe. Abacus, and that originated in China, but the Arab world has discovered it and made good use of it. It's an awesomely effective way to compute quickly for exchanges, right, for money, for bartering and stuff. So he figured out how to use an abacus, and that's actually one of his more famous books. It's called Liber Abaci. Liber is book. We're going to get used to those Latin terms. Where does liber possibly come from? Liber is the same Latin root that means to library. The book. And Liber Abaci was this famous book that Fibonacci wrote about how to use an abacus. He also is the guy who did that translation of Al-Khwarizmi's book about the Hindu number system. So he's the one responsible for the Latin book. Let me say it again. Algoritmi de numero indorum. Yes. Fun. Okay, so he wrote other stuff as well. In fact, I think people got the sense, or at least I got the sense, that he was a mathematician who just brought knowledge from the Arab world to Europe. It's not the case. He actually generated a lot of interesting stuff on his own. So he wasn't just a messenger. He actually was somebody who created a lot of good stuff. So we can't stop without talking about the rabbit problem. So this is the thing for which he is most famous. And his name is still revered today. There's a journal that I read quite regularly called the Fibonacci Quarterly. It is about the Fibonacci numbers. And I know many of you have seen the Fibonacci numbers.
We all have this.
Our papers.
Our papers in Fibonacci. So why did I think that was funny enough that I decided to go with them? They're really fundamental in math. You see the Fibonacci numbers up here in so many different guises that literally there's a journal article, and there's a journal that can be published 4 times a year with 15, 16 articles each edition, about Fibonacci numbers or about unusual ways where Fibonacci numbers reappear.
Okay.
So the problem that Fibonacci stated in his book about Liber Abaci is really just an exercise to get you to use the abacus. That's really what it was about. So in the Liber Abaci, you have this exercise that really requires you to do a whole lot of adding. So, it's perfectly designed for use on the abacus. What you need to do is add a number to the number that you previously had already set up on the abacus. That's the Fibonacci relationship. But he decided to dress it up a little bit in the problem. So we have rabbits. One thing is that they are pairs of rabbits. So really the number of rabbits would be double the Fibonacci numbers. But we're talking about pairs of rabbits. And it's hard to say for certain, but I do think that the idea was they were trying to be a little bit bawdy with this example and make it a little racy. Go for some sexy rabbit stuff. For that period of time, this would have been kind of funny. But, so let's talk about some of the features of these rabbits. They're brothers and sisters, yet they interbreed, right? They always produce another pair, a brother and a sister, and they interbreed. So it's incest in the rabbit world. They're incestuous. They're prolific breeders. They breed after only reaching maturity in a single month. What else about? Well, this isn't dirty or anything, but it bears mentioning. They never die. They're what do you call it when people never die? Immortal. They're immortal rabbits. So we've got these immortal, incestuous, prolific, really breeding rabbits. Yeah.
Where did this come from?
Why? This guy, it's his fault. All right. So.
Fibonacci!
He wanted a story for this exercise that was requiring you to do a bunch of sums. Okay. So your job is to figure out how many. You start with a single pair of these immortal, incestuous, immortal. fast breeding rabbits, and then you want to count how many you have after so many times. So we're going to start with a pair when they're babies. You're given a pair of these unusual rabbits and they're just babies. So I'm going to draw them with little ears here. But that's one pair. A month later, you have big babies. That is, you have grown-up rabbits. So this is grown-up rabbits. Also have ears. I'm probably going to stop drawing the ears after a little while.
Yeah.
Now the breeding is happening. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention one other thing. They only carry their babies for 1 month. Actual rabbits is about 3 months. What's that term called? Gestation period. They have a very short gestation period. So yeah, now this screwing around is happening. In the next month, you've got that same pair of adult bunnies, but you also have some babies. I'm going to get sick of drawing ears on them at this point, right now. No more ears. So what happens next? These guys screw again, and then the next month they're there with a new set of bunnies. Oh, they're going to start to quite have it. They've got the original rabbits, have had another pair of babies, and these guys have grown up. So now a lot of copulation is going to occur, right? These guys are going to breed again, and now these guys are old enough to breed again, and we'll have big guys with their new babies. Their last babies have grown up with their teenagers. Then these guys have their babies. Okay? So let's keep track of what we've done with numbers. We had one pair of rabbits, and then we had one pair of rabbits, and now we had two. And there, at this line we had three. And at this line we had 5. Okay. So what's the pattern going on here? You probably know that you add the 2 previous answers to get the next one.
Fibonacci sequence.
That's the Fibonacci sequence. Why does it work that way? It's that anybody who was alive 2 months ago will definitely be grown up now. Right? So I had 2 people alive 2 months ago, and they will be grown-ups in the next month. Right? And so what do we get out of all the pairs of grown-ups? We get babies. So from these guys, we'll get those babies, and from these guys, we'll get those babies. Anybody who was alive in the previous month is still alive in the next month. And they'll be grown-ups here. So all the people on this previous line end up giving us a pair of grown bunnies. Below. So you see, the 2 months back gets us babies, 1 month back gets us grown-ups. It's just dividing the thing up into the babies and the grown-ups. Well, it gets a lot easier if we just start recognizing the pattern and figure out what we have to do to get it. The question in the Liber Abaci is this: how many of these rabbits are there going to be in a year? Now, you know something about exponential growth, I suspect, right?
We have to go 12 down and then Fibonacci sequence.
Well, we have to go to... If we were doing this, we should really set up an abacus and try to add things up like that. I can't use an abacus. I don't know. Can any of you guys? Try. This is a particularly hard one because you have to use the abacus with memory. So people, you can... Usually you have things go to the left or go to the right, but you can also leave them in the middle to create a column of sort of a memory of old stuff. You have to be good with your abacus if you do that stuff. Anyway, okay. So we're going to have to go to 12, but I just want to guess. Does anybody have a rude guess about how many there'll be after a year? Because we're in month like 6 here, right? Well, 5. There's 5 rabbits. Not that much growth.
It's going to start.
Going up by a factor of 5 in 5 months. Maybe it'll be another factor of 5 in the next 5 months. 25. More than that? I guess we better find out. So we're at this stage. What's the next number after 8? That's nice, because that's 6 months. Now I'd add 8 and 5 to get 13. Then 8 and 13 get 21. 13 and 21 is 34. Okay, it's not 25, because we're past that already. 55. 89. That's when we started. That's actually 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is at 10 months. That's 144, isn't it? Yeah. That's 11 months. We're almost there. At the end of the year, it's 9 and 14, 13, 9, 4 is 13, 233 bunnies, 230 pairs of bunnies. So almost 500 rabbits. Yeah. We can make a fortune with these rabbits, right? They are actually not immortal because we're going to skin them. So that's the rabbit breeding problem. Now, how do we say this in modern notation? We actually distinguish sequences which have subscripts on them like that from functions which have a number after the parentheses. Fn is the sum of Fn minus 1 and Fn minus 2. Or, of course, you can kind of renumber things. I'm saying here, to get the nth one, I want to add up the 2 that came before it. But I could also think about to get the next one, what would I have to add up? If I call this one n plus 1, then I need
Plus n minus 1.
You can fiddle with the numbering like that, right? It's not really changing what it's saying, so it's sort of interesting. Okay, I guess we're done with that. I actually want to show you something that's kind of cool about this, which is how to figure out a formula so that you don't have to go through every month to get here. I'd like to be able to have a formula that just tells me what